In this video we're going to start approaching our first representative subject. We're going to paint a piece of silk of a uniform color. This is a preliminary step that is going to help us introducing many of the things that we will deepen later when we will talk about representative and figurative painting. But most of all, it's very important because it will help us to understand how a representative painting at the end, it's just a bunch of colored stains that we put together on our support following specific rules. Here we're going to see first how it works by the theoretical point of view, so that at the end we should be able to carry out our set of rules, and then we're going to paint it applying all the fundamentals that by now we should be able to control pretty well. This is going to be a strange subject because it's right in the middle between abstract and representative. Although at the end it will represent a piece of silk, the execution is a kind of similar to the one of the abstract painting we did in the last video. And also here, as long as we respect certain rules, there is no way to make mistakes. What we paint, it looks exactly like it should be. Here we will start using the concept of light, shadow, and reflection. For us, at the end, it means that we're going to use three types of colors that we're going to call the light color, the dark color, and the white. We're going to call them in this way because what we're going to discuss now, it's actually valid for any color. So that at the end we can paint, for example, a blue piece of silk, a red one, a green one, or any other colors that we decide to use. The silk, it's a very glossy type of fabric, and this, by the physical point of view, means that it has a good capability of reflecting the light. Normally the light gets in our scene with a certain angle from the top. So when its radiation hits a wavy piece of silk, according with the angle with the external surface in the incident point, the light gets reflected in different directions. So, for example, when the light hits the silk right on the top or the bottom of its waves, where the fabric is pretty horizontal, it gets reflected with a certain angle in the opposite direction, giving us the perception of the color white. When the light hits these areas, it starts a game of bouncing. We're not going to discuss it now, but at the end, it gives us the perception of the light color. Well, in this part of the wave that it doesn't get reached by the light, we get the perception of the dark color. If we go to check now a real piece of silk, we can notice that at the end we can see it like many colored areas, all fading with each other and respecting the specific sequence of colors that we just described. And we should also notice that more or less all these areas are elongated shapes within a certain dimension. The last thing that we have to notice before we start painting this subject is that if we take the peaks of the silk waves as reference, all the dark areas and the light areas are in the same position, respect them. For example, in this case, all the dark areas are on the right or on the bottom, respect the waves peaks, and the light areas are on the left or on the top of them. So, as long as we respect the pattern that we have just described, we are actually free to choose the number, the position, and the shape of all these colored areas that we're going to paint to represent our piece of silk. To start, as always, we're gonna draw a sketch. Only this time we're just going to make some lines on the canvas just to give us an idea of what we should do. but we are not going to paint strictly following them. As far as we respect our pattern, everything should be fine. One of our bonds is that all the areas that we're going to paint should be somehow elongated. So we will use the lines that we are drawing as reference to help us painting those areas later without paying too much attention to their shapes. We're going to decide later when we will start painting the shape of each one of them. Once our sketch is ready, we're going to start painting our canvas. By now, we should already have decided what it should be the color of our piece of silk. In this case, since we have a palette ready with different grades of blue, we're going to use these paints. But you can use any color as far as you can prepare the palette at least with 2 or 3 different grades of that color and some white. As first, we're going to start using the dark color, which in our case it's a Prussian blue. According with what we have decided, the dark areas should be on the right or below the white peaks of the silk waves. So, as first, we're going to start painting these areas. We're not going to do a very precise job now. According with our plan, we are painting on the right or below the sketch lines. And even if in some place we cross them, don't worry, it's just fine. Once we have a rough idea of where our silk waves are going to be, we're going to use the light color on the other side of the peak. In our case, it means on the left or on the top of them. As you can see, we are leaving some room between the light and the dark color because since the wave peak at the end should be white, it helps us to understand better the position and the shapes of the waves that we are painting. Since on our palette we have different grades of blue, we're going to use some light blue to prepare a middle step where the transition is going to be lighter. Now, one wave at a time, we're going to start painting in white right in the middle between the light and the dark color. Using a clean, rounded brush, we're going to start blending and fading the colors in the silk wave direction. And one at a time, we're going to start painting the silk waves. According with our pattern, we're going to use some dark color on the right or below the peaks every time we want to paint a shadow. We're going to use the white for the peaks and the light color on their left for the light side of the waves. Now, let's stop for a second and let's focus on this corner here on the left. It looks already like a sort of wave. But if we put some white there and we blend it and fade it, we're not going to ruin our work, we just change the shape of the wave we are painting. And the same thing happens if we use on the bottom here some Prussian blue. This is why this exercise is very important, because in a sort of wave we're doing an abstract painting with a very few rules, but we can actually see how having a good control of the fundamentals is going to help us later when we will start painting a real representative subject. Let's keep blending and fading the color stains that we have on our canvas. Only this time, let's go to see what happens when we paint a wave peak. This is a pretty difficult part to do in this painting because in a very small area we have to fade three different colors. The light color on the top, the white in the middle, and the dark color on the bottom. Doing this type of fading in such a small area, if we are not really expert, we risk to make this job many times before it comes out in the way we want it. The white gets dirty with the blue, and most of the times it turns in a light blue. But as you can see, we're not paying too much attention here, and this because for this type of job, it's much easier to do it as it comes and rework it later. And this is exactly what we're going to do here. We're going to continue our job until the whole canvas is complete, blending and fading our paints, respecting the rules that we gave ourselves on the beginning of this job. Using a clean rounded brush, we're going to continue fading all the painting areas until we are satisfied. At the end, if we want, we can try to make the peaks and the bottom of the waves lighter. So, using some white, we're gonna paint some line right on top of each wave that we want to adjust. And then, using a large, clean, rounded brush, we're gonna fade each one of them. It's already much better now, and if we like it, we could leave it like this and call also this painting complete. Or we can let it be there for a few days until it's dry and rework it later. We're gonna rework it, so using a small rounded brush, we're gonna start painting a very small quantity of white on top of the wave that we want to make lighter. And using a clean rounded brush, we're gonna fade it. We're gonna do this also for the other waves. And at the end, we can say that this second painting is complete. Also in this case, if we are not happy with the job we just did, we may eventually want to consider redo it one more time before we go on. Because in the next video, although we will go back painting an abstract subject, we'll need to be able controlling our fundamentals really well. If you enjoyed this video, we will really appreciate if you could click on like and subscribe to our channel. It will also help us very much if you could leave a comment. Thank you for watching this video and see you in the next one.